Thank you so much for joining me. I really hope you find this webinar useful. Through it, I'm going to go through the 6 principles that really helped me develop as an artist. They stopped my artwork being inconsistent, and they meant that I could create artwork that I knew was going to work every time. And that is worth its weight in gold. So I hope you enjoy it. As a quick introduction, my name's Sarah Stokes and I'm a professional animal artist, and I specialise in watercolour and charcoal. So I paint any type of animal. It could be wildlife, it could be farmyard, it could be domesticated, large or small. I just love painting animals. I draw and I paint in such a way that I have a repeatable process that means that I always get consistent results. And it's not just me getting consistent results with these methods. Many of my students do too. And I'm just going to show you 3 quick examples. We've got this lovely example by Ray, and you can see such a massive difference from when she first started out painting to her more recent paintings. And this is what she writes. I discovered your classes and it opened up a whole new world of birds and animals, and that's the whole point with the system. It means if you're learning the fundamentals, then these are transferable skills that you can use whatever the animal that you're painting. And just look at this work of Poppy's, and Poppy is only 16, would you believe it? So the first is a drawing from a couple of years ago, and then the next one is a drawing that she completed after she had followed a structured way of drawing, and you can see the difference between the two. I'm just going to read you what she says. It has reignited my passion for art. Overall, it gave me lots of confidence, as well as to trust the process. And that's really important. If you've got a process there, then you know that it's going to end up okay. And if something goes wrong, then there's something within that process that will help you fix it. I love this next piece that was sent in by Emma. You can see the before and after of the beagle. And again, there is such a difference between the 2 pieces. And she writes, I was finally learning techniques rather than simply winging it and hoping for the best. And I think that's what a lot of us do when we first start out with either drawing or painting. We just wing it and just hope that somehow it comes together, and it can be a bit hit and miss. So this session is about clarity and not techniques. It's about 6 guiding principles that really took me from being a haphazard artist into an artist that could produce consistent results with confidence. And at the end of the presentation, I'll explain how you can work with me and how I'll help you apply them. You'll find this session useful if you're a beginner or somebody looking for real improvement in their work. If you're getting inconsistent results, even though you've been following tutorials. If you're a self-taught painter, missing some key fundamentals. If you're an artist aiming for galleries, licensing or commission work. If you want a clear method with real human feedback. If you're an artist that's just lost their mojo a little bit and you're kind of experiencing a bit of inertia and you just want to get some control and enjoyment back again. So who am I? I'm a professional gallery artist, teacher and author. I bought a book out a couple of years ago called Painting Birds, Expressive Watercolour Techniques. I paint and demonstrate for a lot of groups up and down the country, and this one was taken in the Lake District. I also hold workshops at Arley Studios for private and for public groups as well. And I hold retreats in South Africa, London, Spain and Italy. I'm also an IWM artist, demonstrating and holding classes at the International Watercolour Masters Show 2024. Many of you will know me through my online classes, so I think it's fair to say, in a nice way, that I've been around the block. Now, I should imagine that many of you can relate to this. When I first started out, I was kind of enthralled by everything. So one minute would be, I don't know, drawing the dog. The next minute it might be doing a few watercolours, acrylics. Sometimes there would be background, sometimes I wouldn't. Sometimes it would be urbanscapes. I would dabbling with oils, enamels on cans. I was just like a kid in a sweet shop when I first started out. So I was all over the shop. And the only problem is when you keep jumping about like that, when you're just finding out, and I totally understand why people do it, because we all do it. The issue can be that you've just got too much choice, too many brushes, too many colours, too many tutorials, just like, wow, where do I start first? If you're not careful, you can become a jack of all trades, and in the end, you don't even have a recognisable style. And that's not a bad thing when you're starting out, but there becomes a point where you really want to develop a deeper knowledge in maybe just one or two subjects, at least initially. And if you're not careful, when you are presented with so much choice, because actually as artists, I think quite a few of us are quite scatty, you can get inertia because you just get overwhelmed with the amount of choice. And I see this struggle happen quite a lot with my students, in that they start out so excited, there's so much stuff to try there. So if you're just starting out as an artist, one of the very first things I would say is try and focus, try and develop a deeper level of understanding in perhaps just one or two mediums and maybe just one or two subjects. And one of the best bits of advice that I was given when I was starting out was actually by a framer. He said, just put a collection together. He could see how random my work was when I opened up my portfolio. And he could see I had promise, but he just said, you know what, just stick to either animals or people or watercolour or oils. And that's exactly what I started to do. And when I started to do that, I actually saw progress. So in the end, everything that I did over that year had a very recognisable style and feel to it. And then things actually started taking off for me. I started getting licensing deals with a variety of different companies. I thought, wow, great, I'm actually going to get a passive income. I could start to think about giving up the day job. But unfortunately, the royalties were just too low to do that. I was working in schools in the daytime and youth groups in the evening, setting up market stalls to sell my artwork over the weekends. I was servicing 5 independent galleries up and down the country, one of them being in Scotland. I was putting on my own art shows, entering competitions, taking commissions, participating in larger exhibitions too. I really just wanted consistency and clarity in my working life, not the chaos, not the long hours that I was working. But then my big opportunity came with De Montfort Fine Art. Suddenly, I could actually give up the day job and paint all day. And I was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. This is exactly what I want to do. I was so excited. But because I hadn't done that much painting over the last couple of years, I'd been so busy working, my paintings were fairly inconsistent. They either ended up in the bin or worse still, they ended up coming back to me for amends. So De Montfort really needed consistency, and that meant I did. And I was really panicking because I'd kind of given up all the youth work, the independent galleries, the licensing opportunities. I now had only one customer, and that absolutely put the fear of God into me. Fear is the biggest motivator ever. I had to paint 10 to 12 medium to large paintings a month, and I mean really large. So that's what I set out to do. I had to create a process by which I could plan a piece, create a piece, and if necessary, fix a piece before it even left the door. And ultimately, it gave me consistency and confidence. It meant I could draw or paint any animal reliably at any size. So the thing is, you can't just rely on mood or intuition to create a decent piece of artwork. Because if you do, one day your painting will work and another day it won't. And you won't even know why it doesn't work. And what that means is when you do end up doing a decent piece, you're kind of thinking, oh, well, I was lucky on that one, without actually having the confidence of knowing how you did it and how you could do it again. So my second principle is really important for confidence. You have to have a reliable and repeatable process of painting. I painted like this with a proven process for, gosh, I think it was about 5 years for De Montfort. Hundreds of paintings, lots of shows, lots of galleries, meeting some lovely collectors. But this was the sad reality. I actually didn't see many people from day to day, and I actually got a little bit lonely, if I'm honest, and also a little bit bored. So back in 2019, I thought I'd give teaching a try. I'd only ever taught kids, I'd never taught adults. And so I rented a little room at Bewdley Museum and taught my first class, and I really enjoyed it. So I went in search of some studios, and in 2019 I found the perfect spot in Upper Arley, where we opened up Arley Studios right down by the river. Initially it was just me and a couple of little helpers, but I wanted to open up the doors to students. But teaching is very different from painting for galleries, because even though I kind of knew the process myself, I'd never had to verbalise it or work it out. So I reverse engineered it so that I could teach other people that same process. And my face-to-face students started achieving that same kind of success too. And I was so chuffed as they started doing commissions of their own, they started going into exhibitions, they started teaching. It was just amazing to see. We also had a lot of fun creating the artwork. But I did notice that if people missed certain sections of the term, then their results could be really quite inconsistent, and also their confidence would drop too. It can be really tricky if you're learning by yourself, and especially if you're not learning in a set order. You're hopping from, one tutorial to another, from one medium to another. The order that you learn things in really matters. Start with drawing, then move on to tone, then move on to colour, and then move on to watercolour. Now, I know some of you that are watching this will not necessarily want to, say, draw an underdrawing with a pencil first, and I totally get that. And there's many artists that don't even bother with an underdrawing first. I'm thinking of people like Jean Haynes, but they still understand the shape and the form of the object. So you've got to still be very observant, and you've got to really know what something looks like if you're going to launch in without a pencil drawing first. So effectively you're almost drawing with paint. You'll notice that I haven't spoken about composition specifically. It is still very, very important to learn. But what I tend to do is I tend to weave it in to all of the lessons that I teach. And it's something that you pick up right from the very beginning. So where the animal sits on a page, which way it might be looking, or how much white space that you leave around an animal or a person. These are all to do with the rules of composition. Now, you might recognise yourself in this, where you might find that you don't know which bit to work on first, so you tend to jump around. You might do a bit of colour here, a bit of drawing there, one tutorial here, a different medium there. But the knock-on effect is that your progress can end up being really patchy if you're not careful. And in the end, you can stop-start all the time and just convince yourself that you're not good enough. And the way to overcome this is with my next principle, which is principle number 3, which is to learn things in the right order. Now, regardless of whether that's with me or whether it's with somebody else, I would highly recommend that you learn to draw first, then you learn about tone, in other words, shading, then colour, and then medium. Now, the colour and the medium are probably going to be interchangeable, if I'm honest, but that is a really good way to approach your artistic practice. And believe me, I've been there. I've been in this situation where I have jumped in at the deep end and really not known where I am, what I'm doing there. So I really do know what it feels like. So fast forward 2020, of course we had the pandemic, and I took my teaching online because the galleries had closed. And many of you have taken those classes. I think to date it's about 145,000 classes. Great reviews, lots of fantastic student results. But I saw that many of the students still weren't confident enough to take the skills they'd learned from one animal to another animal, or even to a different subject. People loved the projects, but they were still really, really reliant on step-by-steps. And people were still asking me, oh, well, could you do a tutorial on feathers, or could you do a tutorial on fur? And I couldn't really understand why, because I thought, well, if you understand the fundamentals of seeing shape, tone, texture, edge, then if you can draw feathers, then you can draw fur. So something was obviously missing. There was a gap somewhere, a gap in the teaching. And from a student's perspective, when this happens, a student kind of gets stuck. As soon as that tutorial finishes, they haven't got the confidence to carry on, because what they're doing ultimately is copying the tutor. They're copying the tutor's steps. Now, there's nothing wrong in copying. We all start out in copying. Copying is the way that we understand how decisions are made. All these 3 pieces were me copying the style of other artists. So with the horse, it was Laura Zombie. With the owl, it was Jean Haynes. And with the girl's face, it was Agnes Cecile. But instead of just copying, what you have to think is, why did that artist make that decision? So it's not enough just to make sure that your paper is as wet as the artist's paper, or that your brush is as loaded with pigment as much as their brush is loaded with as much pigment. You have to understand the fundamental principles of their method to think, okay, why did they get the paper that wet? Why did they decide to go in just them with that bit of paint? Why didn't they hold back? Because once you understand the fundamentals, that will free you up to paint your own subjects, and actually also to develop your own style, to change some of those decisions to suit your style. So this may ring true with some of you guys that are watching this video, that you are stuck at this copying stage, that you're waiting for the tutor to release the next video or the next class so that you can move on and do another subject. And the knock-on effect with that means that if you deviate from that process, things can sometimes fall apart because you don't actually understand the process and the thinking behind it. And then ultimately that means you just become dependent on waiting for the next tutorial to come through. And it's not really giving you independence. So this is principle number 4. And again, it's another important one. Make sure that you understand the underlying principles so that copying step by step doesn't become a thing, and you're actually learning transferable skills. These will be far more use to you for future paintings. So if you follow these 4 principles, you'll end up developing a style that becomes repeatable, but so repeatable sometimes that it can get a bit boring. And it's actually also one of the other reasons that I started teaching, because quite frankly I'd become a little bit bored. So I guess this next principle is aimed at the more experienced artists. When we get bored, we then tend to start looking at different mediums, different artists, different subjects, and that's entirely understandable, and it's something that I've done in the past many a time. But sometimes the answer can lie nearer to home, and I'll give you an example. A useful move can actually be to revisit the fundamentals, especially when tackling a new subject. Now, for ages I've been trying to crack painting the sea, and I was really struggling. I've been doing it for a couple of years. You can see a piece on the left here, and from my point of view it was totally overworked, really detailed. And then I resorted to gouache to try and get a better result, which was okay, but I really wanted to get it with watercolour. You know, watercolour's like my favourite medium, and I really wanted to crack it. And so what I did, I revisited the fundamentals of wet into wet, seeing the bigger shapes again, squinting my eyes, and just doing a few test pieces. And then suddenly the results started to come together. Just small ones initially. Eventually I could actually describe what I was seeing in my head. Never assume that the fundamentals are done. Even if you've been painting 15 years, 25 years, it never does any harm to revisit them. If you don't revisit the fundamentals, then if you're not careful, you'll find that your development plateaus. It did in my case. I really had hit a brick wall, to be honest, and I got a bit bored. And it stops you evolving. You just feel like you're producing the same old, and that's not a good feeling. So my principle number 5 would be, however experienced you are, revisit the fundamentals. You might be surprised what you learn. Now, when a lot of students come on to my teaching courses, many of them want to become loose with their watercolour. Even some beginners actually say, I want to paint in a loose fashion. And the problem is, it's really underestimated how difficult looseness is. Often people believe that looseness is something that you can just relax into and it will happen. And you know what, I made exactly the same mistake. I would say to people, well, let's put some music on and relax and just loosen up your arm and you'll be fine. But I was wrong too. This is just not the case. If you're not a confident drawer or you're not a confident painter, it doesn't matter how much music you put on or how much I'm banging on about relaxing, your hand is always going to tighten up. You're always going to do the same kind of gestures, and you're never going to have the confidence that you need to do beautifully free drawings or free paintings. So confidence is absolutely key to becoming a loose painter. Now, confidence doesn't happen overnight. It's like learning your scales or practicing chords or learning how to read music. You have to do it enough times for it to stick. And once it sticks, you get this amazing confidence, and you'll find that the looseness will flow. And then you can create the most beautiful artwork in your own style. Now, it can often take hours, but just look at the results. This is the work of Buffy. Now, this amazingly was in 3 years. Look at the difference. And this is what she wrote. I started painting with you during COVID. You and I would be faffing about sometimes until the sun came up. She was online, by the way. Looking back, the Siamese cat and the horse, they were classes, with the most amazing foundations. Now 2 places have a collection of my work, and I got a piece in the NC Watercolour Society. How amazing is that? And you know, you've got to make mistakes, but practice is so important. And look what Thomas Edison said. I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Well, I'm not suggesting you find 10,000 ways to paint something, but you get the point. So this is the issue. People think they can paint loosely without practice and without structure. And yes, you'll create some great results, but some of them won't be. So it is likely that your results will be hit and miss. And this can lead to frustration because you want the painting to be free, and it is free, but it's unresolved. It just isn't what you thought it was going to be like. So, principle number 6, practice makes things second nature. The more practice you get, the more confident you get, the looser your hand will become when you're painting or you're drawing. So I just want to recap on those 6 principles. The first one being focus. Just focus on just a couple of mediums, a couple of subjects. The second one is to discover a framework, either create your own or you can use mine. A framework for painting or drawing that means you've got repeatable steps. This will give you confidence. Number 3, take classes in the right order. Start with drawing, move on to tone, and then colour and your medium. Weave composition all the way through them. Number 4, understand the underlying principles of what your tutor is doing. Don't stick to copying. Understand why they're making those decisions and then make the decisions yourself. Number 5, revisit the fundamentals, the foundations of whatever medium you're using, and you'll surprise yourself with the growth that you experience. And number 6, practice makes perfect, of course. This will help you gain confidence and become a looser artist. Now, these principles might seem so obvious, but you'd be amazed how many people just ignore them, me included. But it's not rocket science, it's really, really straightforward stuff. They can set you free from inertia. I just very quickly want to show you 4 before and after pictures from different students that have worked with me. So we've got Yvonne here. And look at the difference between the Robin on the left and the Jenny Wren on the right. I mean, the Robin on the left is good anyway, but the Jenny Wren on the right, you can just see the proportions are all right. It's just so much better. And she's written, your teaching method gives truly inspirational pieces of art coupled with clear instructions and achievable steps, which I refer back to time and time again. And this is important. She writes, I haven't fallen through the cracks and been left with a painting I really don't like and then lost confidence. And that's what structure gives you. Here we've got Anna's little kookaburra. After beginning the class with you, I feel it's improved, though I still have a lot to learn. And that's great. She understands that there's still a journey to take, but look at the difference between those 2 birds. And that's a tricky angle that Anna's gone for on that second piece. Really, really superb work. We've got Tess here. The first is a line drawing, things are out of proportion. The second one, everything's drawn correctly, everything's in the right place, and she's given it depth of tone. And she writes, I started my art journey around 6 years ago and have been learning off some YouTube videos, finding little success. But taking your course and learning about tone really helped. It truly transformed my artwork. And again, this goes back to my point that if you're hopping about from video to video, it's really difficult to get consistency with your learning. And we've got Jenny here, before and after of the same subject. And again, you can see such a huge difference in terms of composition, depth of tone, colour. Yeah, it's a massive difference. And she's written, lovely style and your method of teaching, I was hooked. I've done all the classes. It's great to look back and see the changes, especially in the fox, which I did with you. And so thank you guys for sending those through. They're just lovely to look at. Now you have a choice. If you're interested in me helping you grow your artistic skills without the guesswork, here's how I can help. Introducing the expressive pathway. Yeah, it's exciting. It's a guided pathway with structured lessons and questions and answers, and it takes you from the basics of drawing through to painting really confident pieces. So it's loosening up without losing control. It's a membership program. You have lifetime access to a whole bunch of professionally filmed courses, and they'll be added onto as the 12 months goes through, and you have them for life. You'll have access to live fortnightly question and answer sessions. You'll have access to the inner circle pathway, which is where I can get to see your work, see how you're getting on. I'll be setting challenges to keep you motivated. It will be a really, really nice community. You'll be able to log in using whatever device you like, whether that's your laptop, your smartphone, or your tablet. And you do it all at your own pace, in your own time. Now, there's just a few myths that I want to bust for beginners out there. Number one, you're either talented or you're not. That's absolute nonsense. I've always believed that you could teach anybody to draw or to paint. They just need to want to do it. Myth two, painting should feel like fun and be intuitive. No, it can be difficult, it can be a struggle because you're learning something new and it will almost feel like your brain hurts, but that's because you're learning something new. But there will be fun. Myth number three, the more materials you have, the better. No, not at all. So I tend to paint with just 4 colours, maybe 3 brushes, and if I'm drawing, it'll be a handful of charcoal tools. So I really keep everything to a minimum. I tend to find tidy desk, tidy mind. I don't want the distraction of lots and lots of different materials. You can achieve an awful lot just with a handful of materials. Myth number 4, tracing and gridding are cheating. No, they're not. It's absolutely fine. I'll teach you freehand drawing, but for the most part, we will be either gridding or we'll be tracing, so please don't worry about that. Number 5, structured learning is boring. No, it's not. It's fabulous. You'll get from A to B a lot quicker, and you'll find your style too. So, are you ready to hear about the structure? What's inside the program? Everything is taught in a clear order from beginning to end. Nothing is random or disconnected. Each course includes multiple studies and projects, so it's not just a single lesson. There's lots of lovely projects to get on with. So first of all, we've got 3 essential courses. 1 on drawing and tone, 1 on colour mixing, and 1 on watercolour itself. So the first one is how to get a drawing onto paper using 3 different methods. That's freehand, gridding and tracing. We also look at how to make something look 3D, so we look at adding tone and giving something more energy. How to create a considered piece using charcoal. And once you learn these techniques, wow, your world's your oyster. You could draw anything that you want to using these same simple tools. The same tools that I would be using for gallery pieces. During this course, you also get your first introduction into my 4-system method of painting. And we just do it in black first without dealing with the colour. It's just more straightforward that way. And finally, in the drawing and tone section, there are ideas there about where else you can take monochrome further. It is such a powerful way of painting or drawing. So the next module is all about colour. It teaches you how to mix colours without making mud. It also teaches you the value of desaturated colours and how we can deliberately make them. For instance, when we are trying to depict things in nature or the colour of skin, for instance. I teach you easy ways to fix a colour's temperature using some garden leaves. And then finally, the ultimate skill is how to mix any colour of your choice using just 4 colours. That's the 3 primaries and black. I've also released a little bonus app. I figured that sometimes people don't practice because they just don't have the time. They haven't got the time to get the paints out, or they just don't want the mess on that particular day. This is a way that you can digitally mix your colours and learn colour mixing. I've designed it so that it works in a very similar way to watercolour mixing. So I think you'll find it really useful. There's various challenges in there, and it'll be a lot of fun on the inner circle just to see how you've got on with it. And there's also a bonus module. Now, this bonus module has been created with Olive and Plum tutor Laura Jane Smith, and is putting those colour mixing principles into practice for the first time, creating a beautiful little harvest mouse. And I think you're really going to enjoy it. The third essential course is advancing your watercolour basic techniques. First of all, we start with getting the pencil drawing to do the heavy lifting. So we create tone using pencil and then we add the watercolour to it. So you don't really go through that ugly duckling phase that quite often you get with watercolour. And this is when I recap on my 4-step watercolour method. So it'll start to sink in at that stage. In the next lesson, we paint this beautiful little harvest mouse, and this time we don't have the pencil tone underneath, we just have a line drawing. So this time we're getting watercolour to do the heavy lifting to give us those dark tones. Now the skills that I'm teaching within this course are generic, so that means you'll be able to paint any animal of your choice with practice. Sharon Gibson, one of our other Olive and Plum Academy teachers, has also filmed a bonus video, and you're going to love it because this is painting sweet peas without an underdrawing. So I think you're going to have a lot of fun with this. So that's an overview of the 3 fundamental courses called the Essentials. There are 58 lessons there, a bunch of resources and lots of exercises and projects. Now the next step is to move beyond just adding a few splashes and actually build an environment for our animals to be in. And these skills are taught in the flagship courses. Just like the Essentials, they've got multiple studies in them, projects, so they're not just a single lesson. And at this stage there are 2 flagship courses. There is Forest Tales, which is this beautiful little squirrel, and there's Sea Life, which actually features a number of different animals. With Forest Tales, you'll initially start with practicing washes, foliage, and you'll also be doing a bit of mark making as well. Or you'll be able to download a really, really useful practice sheet. Then you get to paint the squirrel using my 4-way method. And finally, you get to put the 2 skill sets together and you immerse the squirrel in its environment. As a lovely bonus module, one of our other Olive and Plum Academy artists, Andrew Hemming, has created this amazing course in which you get to use watercolour and inks to create an old oak tree and a forest. The second flagship course is all about sea life. So the first lesson concentrates on how to prepare your paper, how to paint washes that are going to be useful for your sea and for your sky. Then you get to paint a beautiful flamingo, and then you get to paint the seal, again using my 4-step process. Then you'll get to paint the sky and the sea. And Jamie Moore, another Olive and Plum Academy artist, has very kindly filmed an amazing course where you get to paint sardines wet into wet, and you're going to love these techniques. So for the flagship then, there's Forest Tales and the Sea Life. There are 52 lessons and again a bunch of resources, exercises and projects. And the great thing is you'll receive lifetime access to all of these courses and any new courses that come out within your 12-month membership. And the best bit is I will be there to listen and to hear what kind of courses you want to see happen next. And there's even more amazing stuff. Get access to the vault. Now inside the vault are a whole host of self-guided videos. They're a great idea to watch once you've learned the fundamentals and you've been through the core modules. Within the programme is the Pathway Inner Circle, and this is the place where you can share your work, you can ask questions, and it's also where the live question and answer sessions will be held every other Tuesday. So the programme's available through your web browser using any device of your choice, and you just log in with your password exactly the same as you would for Facebook or Netflix. Now you view the courses at your own pace. It's not a programme that's designed to be binge watched. There's no competition, you're not having to keep up. There's a really useful little section that tells you how far you are through the programme, so you won't ever get lost on it. And if you do, then I'll be the other end anyway. The whole point of this programme and learning things in the right order is that it's designed to shave years off your learning. All that knowledge that I gained when I was trying to figure out a process is explained in this programme. Now the standard membership is £49 a month and it's an annual commitment. During that period you'll have lifetime access to all the courses, you'll have 12 months access to the vault and the inner circle and the question and answer sessions. You'll also have lifetime access to any new courses bought out during that 12-month period, and I think that's really important. Now, it's not on auto renew. At the end of the 12 months, you'll be sent out a reminder, and then if you want to, you can continue your monthly subscription on a month-by-month basis, and it'll be just £25 a month. Now, the applications are open for just 7 days only. This intake starts on the 25th of January and finishes on the 31st of January. After that, applications will close and a waitlist will open for the next cohort. If you're one of the first 50 people to sign up, you will only pay £35 a month for the next 12 months. And if you're one of my face-to-face students, you will also only pay £35. Now, I really hope that once you become a member, that you stick with it. But if you decide it's not for you, or the timing's just not right, then I do offer a 7-day, no quibble, money back guarantee. So when you go through to the sales page, there'll be 2 boxes. There will be a box for face-to-face students, and that says £35. So if you're face-to-face, you click that one. If you're a new member and I've not taught you face-to-face, then you'll go to the other box. For the first 50 people, it'll say £35, and that's the amount you pay. For members that join after that, the box will revert to £49, and that's the amount that you'll pay. In both cases, it is an annual commitment, but there is the 7-day money-back guarantee if you decide that the subscription isn't for you. Just before I go, I want to leave you with a 55-second video by one of my, I want to say older students, but older in the sense that she's been with me the longest time. Janice Baber, she's been with me since 2019. In fact, she is going to be working with me in Italy very soon. She has done over 140 commissions. She is such a successful artist. She's just brilliant, and I just want to leave you with this final little video.
Hello, I'm Janice. I'm one of the lucky ones that's been attending Sarah's classes since they started in early 2020. Classes were a revelation to me. I'd always wanted to try watercolour but didn't really know where to start. Sarah's courses were perfect for me, starting with the basics and leading up to some lovely all-colour watercolours within a few lessons. I soon had the confidence to attempt commissions for friends and family of their pets, and this has quickly grown into doing over 140 commissions to date. They're mainly pets and wildlife, but I've also had the confidence to attempt human portraits too. The fact that it's actually okay to trace has been a game changer for me. All in all, the classes have just been brilliant. Don't regret it for a minute. I just wish I'd started them 10 years earlier, really.
Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you inside the Pathway programme.